Hey you guys, it's Amy Gretchen. Thank you so much for joining me. So in this video, I'm working on another Project Life spread. This one is from the year 2020 and it is week 46. So it's November 9th through the 15th. And I'm going to be using Ali Edwards' Story Kit Evening. And I do a lot of story kits in my project life, but this story kit felt a little bit more challenging because it is very specific to evening. And I know all of her story kits are very specific to the theme, but when you consider telling the story of a week, I was debating whether or not this would be easy or hard to do. But what I decided, and what I really love about these story kits and Project Life in general, is because you're telling stories week by week, that you are able to kind of use one week and pull out a theme like evening, like tech that I did one week. I see people do things like food where you're just documenting what you're eating that week and not all the other things. And that's because you're doing it on a weekly basis. So all the time that you're able to kind of branch out and tell these other stories. And the reason why I chose this week in particular is because, and not that this week, that there's anything special about this week other than in Washington, my evenings were very different than they were while living in Salt Lake City. So that was one of the reasons why I pulled this out. And those are some of the stories that I'm hoping to tell today. But let's dive in and let me just quickly show you the products. So here is the chipboard, and then it comes with some stickers. These are circle stickers that have some evening themes. This was one of the reasons why I thought maybe this would be a hard week to do in Project Life, because they are very specific to the evening theme. But we are gonna give it a try. I'm excited about this challenge. Then of course there is the word evening here. She's no longer doing the thick acrylic words. It's now the transparencies, what I really like because it fits a lot better in these pockets. But I'm going to set that aside because I'm not going to be using that. And then the kit also comes with these great metal, what would you call these? They're like pins, but without the pin. They're enamels. I guess they're like metal enamel pins without the pin. I don't know how else they would call these. So this is very reminiscent to her morning theme. So I think she did that intentionally. And I am actually going to also use this kit to work on, do you remember, if you remember, I'll have to like add a picture of my my morning layout that kind of showed my mornings from 10 years ago and my mornings now. I want to do that and kind of showcase the evening. So it kind of reminded me that she used that for the morning as well. Then we have these really large transparency circles, which are really, really cool. I was hoping they were a little bit more transparent. I know she did these in one of her other kits, and I put them on top of the photos, which I thought was really cool, but they were a little bit more transparent than these ones are. You can't really see the photos through. So I'm not sure if I will use these today or for another project, but these are a lot of fun to play with. Then there is some word veneer words. These ones are, it looks like it's all good evening in different languages. I don't speak all the languages, but I do know that that is Spanish. I do know this is German, and of course English, and I'm not sure, maybe one is French. I'm not sure on the other languages, but that would be fun to use for another project, especially this one, Buenos Tardes, because I am trying to learn Spanish right now through Duolingo. So I've been actually using it for like 50 days now and doing really well. I really am enjoying it. So I will have to use that in a coming up spread to kind of showcase that I'm learning Spanish. And then we've got the 3x4 cards, which you're going to see more as I go through them, and then also the 4x6 cards. So let's just jump in and you guys can see how this one turns out, and I can see how this one turns out. And so see you in a sec. All right, so just jumping in and moving things out of my desk so I can put my photos down, which is always the first thing that I like to do, is just kind of get that foundation. I didn't have a ton of photos this week, but It's not a problem. If you are running into that as well, you could just fill up your pockets with more cards, more journaling, more design. You can enlarge a photo. There's a lot of different options for that. I ended up doing a lot more cards and journaling, I guess. So as I'm putting down my photos, I'm looking over at those circles and trying to figure out how I could actually include it. And I ended up deciding not to do it, but I thought maybe it would be cool to add to the edge of one of the 4x6 cards and do some gratitude. So this week was in November 9th to the 15th, like I said, and I was doing gratitude every day. I typically do gratitude every day, but this was more like I was taking a photo a day and trying to do gratitude, which is interesting that I don't have like 7 photos for this week, or do I have 7 photos for this week? But I was really trying to highlight one thing that I was grateful for. It really does help me to stay positive, and I love that practice in November. So I was thinking about using one of those 4x6 cards as kind of a gratitude card. You'll see how I include it in this one. I don't go through all the gratitudes that I did that week, primarily because I have a journal and I've got all those gratitudes in there. So I didn't feel like I needed to repeat, but I did share a couple of them here, and I'll explain to you what I ended up doing when I get to that portion. But instead of doing the circle, for whatever reason, it was kind of throwing me off having that circle kind of pushing into the card. You know me, I like to have things very linear. So I ended up cutting up that star pattern, the black with the stars on it, because I think it's actually a navy blue. I really liked that pattern, and it was so interesting. I just have to say, when you cut that card in half, you can see that the pattern repeats itself like every 3 inches. So it was really cool that both of those cards were exactly the same once you cut it in half. So definitely take note of that, because I thought it was really cool. So you can see that I also cut the other card up, and I wasn't sure. So that card that has the stars at the top of it, I wasn't sure if I should include both, but I ended up including both because it becomes part of my gratitude, and I'll show you that, like I said, when I get to it. So I'm going and looking through the chipboard right now. And the chipboard is a little bit different now. I don't know if they've changed the manufacturer, but it's not coming off the back quite as well. So I'm having to rip things so it doesn't come off quite as cleanly, but that's fine. I thought maybe I would include, when I first saw that, I thought maybe I would include a quote or something on one of the cards. But ultimately, I love this idea of splitting up the quotes and doing my gratitude on both of those cards. So that's why the cards look very similar. And then I grabbed that star asterisk, and I'm going to just put the date. You saw that I was kind of debating about, I cut up one of the other cards and was debating about kind of putting or sandwiching the dates in between those design cards. It was kind of like galaxy looking, but it felt just too stark. So I ended up not doing it, and just, you'll see that I end up just stamping the dates on there. All right, so I'm starting my journaling, and this one kind of threw me off for a loop. So that first story that I told, I alluded to at the beginning, which was my evenings have been were very different when I moved to Washington. My husband got up very early, and so he went to bed quite early, and so I ended up being downstairs alone, and then I ended up like really enjoying my time. And sometimes I would get to bed at like 1, sometimes 2. So it was kind of crazy. But anyway, I already talked about that a little bit. And then there's the currently card. This is currently in this evening. And I thought that that was a really interesting thing to kind of talk about, you know, what are you watching or listening to, eating, those kinds of things in the evening, because it is a little bit different. I was hesitating on the watching because I just don't remember watching anything. There are times on the weekend that sometimes I would watch something with Adam, but there was just not one thing that kind of stood out. I actually checked my phone. That was one of the things that I was doing. But like the eating, one of the things I love eating at night, which I think is a really great snack, which is probably not good for you, is popcorn. So just really love popcorn. And then, I just went through what I was reading, which I actually don't read at night because I will fall asleep. If I'm sitting up like on a chair, okay, but if I am like in my bed cozy, I will always fall asleep. So kind of mentioned that about the reading and, little things like that that are primarily just things that are going on during the evening. I don't think I have ever documented that before. So I was really grateful for that card and the chance to tell that story. You can see that I just did the title card, which is what I had mentioned before, just kind of stamping with the Studio Calico Mega Date stamp. That is the first time that I use that stamp since I moved here. And I think every time I use it, I'm like, why don't I use this all the time? I love how large the stamp is, and I really love the font as well. So I just think it's super, super cool. All right, so since I've got two 3x4 cards in a 4x6 slot, I am just using some washi tape to put them together. It's a lot easier to fit them in the sleeve that way. And you can see also that I did some gratitude journaling on that white card, and I'm going to extend it up into the other card as well. So I'm trying to think, I think that gratitude, or that card that says grateful, was about one specific thing. I don't think it's like a list of things. I believe it's one specific thing. So in the little tagline, it says something about like, how are you feeling? Or today I'm feeling, or this evening I'm feeling, or something like that. Anyway, so one of the other things I wanted to do with this spread, because I felt like I wanted to give a little bit more context to the photos, because I was primarily telling evening stories, is I decided to do a little bit of journaling on the photos. And I thought that I would take, in order to kind of put that journaling on there, I would stick one of these stickers. I thought the circles were too big. So I thought, you know what, maybe I will die cut a star and see what it's like, or what it looks like to have, a star cut into, or, die cut a star and put that right on top of the journaling, just for some added interest. I've done it before. I've seen lots of other people before. I just felt like the circles were a little too big. Well, I ended up doing it. You can see I've got on the upper right corner, you can see that yellow one that I did. I was just testing it out. And then I did one more. And what I noticed is, because the sticker was a little bit thicker, it's a little bit more like cardstock, it really pressed into, you can kind of see it right there. The die cut really pressed into the sticker. And so you were kind of getting this weird border that didn't look 100% great. So I scrapped that idea and decided that the stickers weren't a really great option, but I still thought the circles were a little too big. So I grabbed over this punch, and this makes me think really what I should have done. I needed to use a star punch, but I don't have a star punch. I actually got rid of a ton of punches when I moved. So I know that I got rid of a star punch that would have been really helpful here. So I might have to reinvest in a small star punch, because I could see myself wanting to do this again, because it just gives you more options with your stickers. Especially, let's say if you had a sticker that had like a saying that you necessarily didn't want to use, but it had a lot of open space that you could punch into. So I could see how this would be a great option. I think I'm going to have to invest in a small star, just because, yeah, why not, right? I don't know. That was one of the things I collect back in the day, was punches. And yeah, when I moved to Seattle, I got rid of all of them. And now I'm slightly regretting it. Only some of them. Some of them I wish that I had been smart enough to keep. Clearly, I kept like all the circles and all of my squares, but not all the stars. All right, so you can see that I am now just putting on the little strip of paper, which I think was 2.5 by 3/4 of an inch, and doing the little bit of journaling just to give some context. And this actually is when I did a little bit more writing about the gratitude. So I did write like a little bit of the gratitude that I wrote in my journaling about my daughter playing the piano and music being in the house. And I did the same thing with the photo that I'm working on, and then all the other ones. It definitely had a not a feeling of gratitude. I actually used the word gratitude, but that was my, I guess you would say, the lens that I decided to write about for each of these photos. And I definitely wanted the card to be less than 3 inches. I didn't want it to go too far over, but then I did want enough space to be able to write in. So anyway, there you go. Those are some of the reasons why I chose to do what I did. One of the other things I wanted to do was to stagger the cards on the photo. So some of them are on the bottom and some of them are on the top, of course, keeping in mind not to cover any part of the subject of the photo. So I've done this before in my project life, and I really love how it adds a little bit more of the story, more context to each of the photos. And then of course, a little bit more design. It's getting a little bit more of the colors in there and just adding something a little bit whimsy to some of the photos. So it's definitely something I've enjoyed doing in the past, and so happy that I included it here on this one. So you can see that I moved that well, I think I'd already moved that chipboard. I was just kind of putting it down. Now I'm starting to make some of the final decisions. I'm putting 2 more of the cards together. I think I was trying to decide if I wanted to add more, or I think I'm doing that here. Trying to decide if I want to add more to the stars. Like I said, a lot of those chipboards and a lot of these stickers, the sentiments were very evening oriented, and I just felt like I had enough of those in the journaling cards that I didn't need to really add anything more onto the design card. So there was that second piece of gratitude. So ultimately I do end up having a lot of gratitude on this spread with those 2 journaling cards and then with the photos as well. And the last thing that you're going to do, I basically am done, but I do end up putting another little piece here. I wanted to add a star, and I actually really love that orange. I might go back and change it. I did leave it with the green, but I think I like the orange better because there's so much green on that side. I would like a little bit more orange to kind of help with the orange from the fall-like colors. And then of course, like my alley project that had a little bit of orange on there. So I think I might have to change that now that I'm rewatching this over again. And of course, one more thought, I wanted to have a little bit more journaling on a couple more of the cards. I felt like I should add something to that photo that I'm journaling on. And then I end up doing one more that I cut it out because my head got in the way, and it's just focusing on my head. It's not like it's focusing on what I'm doing at all. It's basically focusing on my head. So I end up cutting this one out here, but I just do a little bit more journaling. I do need another sticker. And I will say that, of course, you can see that it's a lot smaller because it's on a 3x4 card, and I am not sure what the size is, but it almost looks like a 1/2 inch by maybe 2 inches. So that's going to be my guess. So anyway, you guys, that is it for this spread. Really fun kit to play with. I'm really glad I gave it a try for Project Life. And I really loved kind of honing in on some of those evening stories and finally getting some of those told, because I have not told them in the past. Again, thank you so much for being here, you guys. I always really appreciate it. If you like what you saw, please give this a thumbs up. And if you are new here, welcome. And please don't forget to subscribe. All right, you guys, we'll catch you next time. Bye.